In today's video, I am going to give you different motion basketball drills that you can run with your team so that you can understand, or your team can understand, how to run your offense better. Now, of course, not every single motion offense are going to have these exact same moves. However, I'm going to cover many different types of motions and different drills that you can run with them. So let's get down, let's check these out really quickly. Make sure to go check out my complete guide to the 5-out basketball offense, which is a fantastic motion that you could run with your team, and I personally run with my junior varsity and senior varsity teams that I coach. So first off, we're going to have 2 lines and 2 coaches. Now, these don't necessarily have to be coaches. You could use players. However, I personally prefer to use coaches because they tend to listen better than players. But anyways, I digress. What we're going to have is, obviously, the first line is going to be the line at the point. He's going to then pass the ball over to the coach on this wing. At that time, he's going to go and set a screen over to player 5 on the coach. We have to remember that we should have a defender there, because when it comes to drills, if this player just randomly goes and sets a screen, they're going to do the exact same randomness in game, and they probably won't aim for the player, because I'm going to tell you right now, when this pass goes over to this side, the defender's going to go from here to here into a help style defense, obviously if it's a man-to-man. So if that's the case, player 4 will then of course set that screen over to that coach or onto that coach, and player 5 is going to use that screen. Now, this is all well and good. We can have that pass over to player 5. We can have that shot. If you don't want to go to the 3, you could go to the high post on this side and have the shot. That's totally fine. But that would be kind of level 1 to this drill. And we really want to have our coach really kind of teach our team how to use screens. So for example, if player 5 is using that screen and the coach goes over top of the screen, that's when we want to see player 5 cut in to keep the coach behind him, or the defender behind him will then pass the ball to that player for the layup. Player 4 would obviously go in the back of this line, player 5 would go in the back of this line, and we would continue through this drill. However, after we make this pass and we make this screen, if, for example, the coach goes underneath, that's when we want player 5 to pop right about here, or maybe even take a step back, but generally pop somewhere near the point, because wing-to-point passes are regularly pretty risky anyways. But we make that pass over to player 5 for that 3-point shot. Now, the reason for this is if the coach goes underneath the screen, then that's a heck of a long distance to cover to try to block or contest that shot. That's why you would want to go over top if your defender goes underneath. And again, same idea, where if player 4 passes that ball and he sets this screen, and if the coach is trying to kind of hedge and block the ability to use that screen, we want player 4 to take a pivot in to screen on this side of the coach. That way player 5 can cut back door, and of course we can make that pass to him for the layup. That's essentially the 3 ways you can use a screen. So with this drill, we really want to teach our player, hey, this is where you want to screen, and then of course level 2 of the drill would be to have that coach or that player fight around the screen or try to cut off that screen and change up his mind and change up what he's doing every so often, so that we can teach our players what they can do in game depending on what that defender does. We want to really teach our team, if this then that. If the defender does this, we do that. Kind of like coding terms when it comes to coding an app. We can even have 2 lines in this next drill where we would have that pass over to player 4. Of course, the coach at this point would then defend that player. Player 2 would then set that screen, and player 4 would then use that screen. Again, level 1, we can have player 4 pull up for the mid-range, and we would be all set. Level 2 of the drill would be maybe have player 2 roll towards the basket, hit him up for a layup. And then level 3 would be having that pass go over to player 2, player 4 setting that screen, and then when player 2 is using that screen, we would then have the coach either go underneath, over top, or cut off the screen, and then we would have player 2 in this case decide what the best option would be. So for example, if the coach tries to fight over top of the screen, player 2 would then cut towards the basket and finish with a layup. Option 2 is if the coach goes underneath the screen, then player 4 would then pivot, turn, re-screen. Player 2 would then pop back and take the 3-point shot, because that's creating a lot of distance between him and his defender, and he should be able to pull off a shot from there. And of course, option 3 is if the coach is trying to totally negate that screen by cutting it off, that's when player 2 would then cut back door and finish with a layup. Again, trying to teach how to use a screen, but also how to navigate a defender as to what they could do when it comes to using a screen. Next is going to be a 3-line set where we'll have a line at the baseline, a line at the wing, and a line at the point. And obviously you're going to be doing this drill on both sides. It's not just a one single-sided drill. However, we're going to have a pass to player 2, and player 4 is going to cut to the rim using player 5 as a screen. This would be more for like a 4-out 1-in motion, where after making a pass, you would then cut towards the rim using the postman as a screen. We can kind of do a level 2 to this drill where we would make that pass. We would then, of course, use that screen again. However, because this is a back screen, there's still different ways that we can use that screen. And of course, when we use that screen, if the player wants to go over top of that screen, again, still cut down, layup. If this player tries to go underneath the screen to try to cut off your ability to use it, that's when you want to either pop back out, or personally, I would prefer to pop out towards that side because your momentum is taking you over there. And of course, that's when you would want to take that 3. You can also have a coach set up the screen too, but it's totally up to you. And then there is the third option where if the coach is trying to essentially fight the player from being able to use that screen, cut back door, leave the player or the coach behind, lob a pass in, a hard lob pass. You don't want anything floating. And then, of course, player 4 goes in for that layup. Of course, when you're finished with this line, you go to this line. And when you're finished with this line, you would then go over to this line. And when you're finished with the screening line, you would then go in the back of course, the passing line. These are some fantastic motion drills that you could run that also teaches your team how to use a screen, because so many players will continue even today where the coaches may not be teaching players how to use screens, and they just go through the same motions, and then they got caught up because the defender is going to be defending it the exact same way every single time, and sometimes it'll lead to defenders cheating, going underneath screens, and of course that breaks up the play. If they understand how to then navigate back out using footwork to pop back out because that defense is now cheating going underneath the screen, that's when we can then as teams win more games, because now we're teaching our players how to navigate a cheating defense or a very aggressive defense, so that now we can essentially have our players be more successful on the court. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next time.